All right, we are rolling. Marlon Azurdia, welcome back to the Terrain Theory podcast.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah, Marlon, it's been
Appreciate it.
over 3 years. It was like August 2022 that you last came on, and we'd been trying to get you back on, but life gets in the way. And the
hmm
timing of your this reunion is perfect because, as I was saying before we hit record, like Mike and I have just been going down this rabbit hole of raw food, Agenus Vonderplanets first. It was like raw food, raw meat even. And you noted that, and you were going into like a water fast. You've been doing, I know you've experimented with like mucusless diets. You were crushing fruit. You are a person who needs to experience it. You're a big believer in experiential wisdom. And the timing seems right to touch base, reunite, find out what you've been up to, and see what new wisdom you've accrued over the course of the last 3 years.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah. I mean, you said it exactly the way it is, man. You guys, you start off by talking about yourself, how you guys are both practicing what you guys are good at practicing what you're preaching, right? And you guys are like students of life, and you guys are doing some things that most people just are not willing to do, or maybe perhaps are not able to do because we like I was saying before here, we don't have nowadays. We live in this information age, and it's like there's just so much information. There's so much truth out there, and it's really hard with the limited amount of time that we have to experience it all. And so we have to really ground ourselves in just one thing, right? And really just find the truth there and see how well that is and how that works for yourself, right? Because that's really all it is. Like you said, experiential wisdom, right? And that's I do preach that because I believe that is the key here, right? And so you'd have to kind of just settle down. You got to settle down. You got to slow down, and you got to try something out, see how it works for you. And that is really where all the wisdom comes in, right? Because there's so many great things out there, and I'm sure you guys, like you said, you've done some raw food stuff and some raw meat. Like how I've never done the raw stuff, well, raw meat and things like that. But I mean, how did you guys feel off doing
Mike, go
that?
ahead. You jump in first.
Well, it's funny, Marlon. We're kind of like a kitchen sink approach to health. Like we're just implementing a new thing. It seems like every week, so it's hard to know like what is what when you ask like how did that make you feel? It's like, well, I don't know if I can narrow
Yeah,
it down. Um,
yeah,
I'll tell you this, and it's the same thing I say when people ask me like, "Oh, you're gluten free. Like, how does that make you feel?" And I say like, it makes me feel completely normal as opposed to feeling horrible, which is how I felt when I was eating those things, right? So implementing
right,
raw meat or raw foods into my diet makes me feel good, not worse. It makes me feel a good baseline, right? To go the next step and to maybe remove meat from my diet would be something new for me. I mean, I've been raised in a family that has meat at every holiday, most meals. In my own family, we eat a lot of meat, so it's like it would be new terrain. Have you ever been a meat eater, or have you always been on the veg tip?
yeah. So yeah, okay, like the journey has kind of been awesome. It's been an awesome journey, I'll tell you this much, because very early on when I first started doing this, which was like back in like 2000 and I believe it was like 2011, 2012-ish. That's when I started like my whole like holistic lifestyle approach. I came across, like, I'm sure you guys have heard like Paul
Oh yeah.
Chek. I first started kind of getting into Paul Chek stuff, and it was mostly I started researching health because it was me and my wife. My wife was going through some health stuff, so and then I also was really passionate about just becoming the fittest version of myself. Right, this was just me transitioning from like playing football like at a high level. Like I was playing university. I got some tryouts in the CFL. I was going for that. I was really trying to make that like my thing, right? I wanted to be a professional football player. That was like my goal. And so I was like really in it. And so like one of the biggest things I started to do was like look into my nutrition, look into like my lifestyle and what I needed to do to gain that edge, right? I always knew there was an edge somewhere out there. And so I kind of started really getting into the health space for that. And when I did that, I discovered like paleo, right? So I got into paleo. Like my paleo was a big thing that I started like researching and started getting into. And that was like obviously a lot of meat and like just like basically you guys know what the paleo diet is. So I kind of got into that. But very early on too, there was a few guys very few guys. It was only like a handful of guys, like maybe three guys that were pushing intermittent fasting back then. One guy was like Jason Ferrugia, I believe his name was, and he created something called the Renegade Diet. And so I started really getting into that, and I started practicing fasting along with paleo. It went really well together. So I started like implementing that into like my whole practice, and it kind of went like a little bit against like athletic, the whole point of view of athleticism. Like you have to fuel quite a bit, like with the amount of like exercise and training that I was doing. But I was always been like a kind of guy that was like against the grain. I always kind of felt like I needed to challenge things, and I felt like I really needed to explore this way that I thought made more sense to me. So I kind of started getting into the fasting and that, and then I just carried it on. And from there, I kind of really discovered a new kind of profound energy, right? That I started tapping into, and clarity, and like my inflammation, because like I was like at this point, I was like in my 20s, 21, 22. And I was like, a lot of the guys I was playing ball with, they were all kind of like just retiring because they were all just beat up from playing football through high school and stuff. Like 5, 6, 7 years of contact sports really beats you up if you're not taking care of yourself. I was like, I just like started, I was just getting started. So I was like, I really helped me push and motivate myself. And I connected with all the right guys to keep myself like in shape. And then when football didn't work out for me, I was like, I gotta put this energy into something. So I like started going in it. Like I found CrossFit, and I was like, wow, this is like cool, man. This is like the next level. So I like got into CrossFit, and I was like, wow, man, this is like, I feel really good. I want to like start competing in it. So like first 2015 was like my first year I competed in the open. I was like, did okay. I didn't really know what to expect. 16 was when I went into the regionals. That year I went into the regionals, and I was like, I didn't know what I got myself into, but I was like in there with all the top guys like Brent Fikowski, like Cole Sager, like all these guys that are still around and won championships. I was right there on the floor with them. And that year I was like, wow, I was like, this is like, I'm going to keep going with this. But then at the same time, I remember I went to Italy, and I was like, man, I don't know, something out there just changed me. And I was like, me and my wife were pregnant with our son. And I just, when I came back, I was just like, you know what? I don't feel like I need to eat like meat anymore. Right. And I think we talked about this in our last connection we had. And at that point is when I kind of stopped. So it was like 2016, 2017, I just became vegetarian. And I was like, and again, I know that this is contrary to what, the whole lifestyle of like CrossFit and training. And at this level, it's really the macros, or you have to dial them in, a lot of protein, high protein. And that just didn't set well with me. I didn't feel like that was the priority. My priority was like, I really need to just like listen to my soul, like what it's telling me. And I don't feel like I resonate at this moment with this kind of type of fuel, or this energy information, like I call it. It's like this energy and information. It's like, it's not vibing with me right now. So that's when I went vegan vegetarian. And that was like a good 2016-ish, end of 2016 to about 2022, like when we were talking around then. And so that was my whole CrossFit career, though. My whole CrossFit career, I was vegan mostly. A little bit, I'd say vegetarian, because I would eat like some cheese here and there and stuff like that. But that was it. And yeah, like I feel well. I felt awesome. I felt really great, and it extended my career. I was able to compete. I was late. I was old too. I was like in my 30s, going on to like masters, and I was competing with all the young bucks. So I wish I would have came across it a lot earlier, because I think I would have done a lot better. But went to the games a couple times, and I was like, that was a cool story, but it was totally against the grain, and that taught me a lot, because I was just like, yeah, maybe like I could have done it differently to maybe go for like the whole performance. But honestly, this journey for me has been more about like an inner standing, an inner awareness of ourselves, and like how to tune the body, because I believe our body is just an instrument of consciousness, and we are just tuning it with whatever we're entering into resonance with. And a big, huge part of that is the diet, right? And it's what you do with that energy that you are now tapping into that allows you to really discover your capacity to express our true potential, right? And so it's all just an experience, and that is the key here, is that we have the we've come here in some way, however way you feel, which I have totally crazy understanding of what that is now, I think, like as far as where I'm at in my current level of ignorance. But like I truly feel that we're just here to like obviously tap into just whatever it is we want. And so we are very malleable, and we are very we're basically just like we're hybrids, right? And so a lot has been done to obviously shy us away from what we're capable of. And obviously I know, and I know you guys also see this the same way, is that obviously there's some intentions there, but we are so finely tuned to, we have so many senses and we have so much connection with the environment. It's really hard to dumb down or numb down that capacity for us to really like really just search and connect with what we truly like are capable of. And so I believe now, I know I've been talking for a while now in answering your question here, but I totally believe that we're just obviously energy. We're energy and we're information, and we're energy in formation, and there's a consciousness. I believe it's like the all, right? Which is the all is mind. And we're just like at some level, we're just like a mental process, and we're just always creating, right? We're always creating out of our thoughts, out of what we think and feel. And this in itself, I believe, is just us, just our interactions with what we interact with from day to day, whether that be people, whether that be like the foods we consume, the things we listen to, right? It's all a level of consumption. And we're kind of like we're just tapping into now putting all the pieces together. Like there's so many people in our community, like the Truth community right now, that are tapping into all these little tiny clues of things that are just like, they've been around. There's been people that have written books about it. They've been around for 50 years, 100 years. And we're like, it's almost becoming so simple to understand these things, but yet before it just seems so complex. And we're like, wow, it's this crazy thing. And it's like, no, it's not. It's this very simple thing. And it's very simple because that's how things actually should be. Like it should be very easy to understand and to like it should be natural. Right. And so what I'm referring to here is just our awareness of just how we can just tune ourselves. And I made a video recently on my IG about my so far after post fast. And I'm just like, I talk about basically just something that I believe now I'm able to like articulate it more. But the more you just are doing what you guys are doing right now, which is like exploring different diets, exploring different things, this is like just your curiosity. And that is not like an ignorant thing. It's not like, oh, you're just a fad dieter, or oh, you're just jumping onto the next thing. No, you're tapping in to a signal or an information field that feels like you get curious, and you are literally wanting to enter into resonance. As soon as you get into this diet, you're now entering into resonance with what that diet has to offer, whether it's the food, like the animal or the type of organism that you're going to be consuming predominantly. There is a field there that you're entering into resonance with, and that's what you're attracted to. But we don't see it as that. We're labeling it as like a diet, like, oh, it's the carnivore diet. But it's like, no, you're entering into resonance with animals, the consciousness of the animal, and that's what you're drawn to, and that's good. You're gonna learn something from that, and it's not, oh, it's because of all, like the thing that I'm kind of like really just trying to push away from is like spitting all these facts about what's in this food. Like, oh, it's high in protein, it's high in amino acids, it's high in live enzymes. It's like, no, it's high in information. And that's really all it is. It's a field, right? And there is information there that you can't just break down and say it's got protein, because that protein does not exist without everything else in there. So you can't just extract the protein and say, I need the protein, because now you're taking away the equation. You're taking away like you're creating an equation out of something that's holistic. And it's definitely not meant to be broken apart and dissected. And, this is where like the whole, obviously, Newtonian, everything predictable, kind of just, mechanical, universal kind of way of seeing things is they've mechanized things and putting into parts, and like, okay, we can dissect the atom and it's this one thing. It's like, no, it's everything. And so you're connecting with the information field, and that's all it is. So if you're drawn to plants, guess what? You're going to be connecting with the field of plants, of the level of mind of plants. So there's these different levels of mind, right? And there's like the higher mind, the highest self, and then there's like the mind of the all, right? The collective mind. And then there's like different levels of mind, like Ishtov Bentov talked about as I read his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum and the Mechanics of Consciousness, like many years ago. And it's one of these here. This was like one of my first books that really kind of got, you guys will just love this book. It's amazing.
Say
But
it out loud. Say the title out loud for the listener.
it's called Stalking the Wild Pendulum on the Mechanics of Consciousness by Ishtov Bentov. Like, he's the one that created the pacemaker for the heart, but he actually was very, very spiritual guy, very connected. He died tragically in an airplane accident. I don't know if it was an accident, but basically he talks a lot about, like, that's where I got, like, first came across, like, I read this book in like 2009, I think, but it was like, it talks about just levels of consciousness, right? Like the level of a rock, the level of consciousness of an animal and of a human, like they're all different levels, but we're all interconnected. And so anytime we connect to something, we're giving it consciousness, and it's giving us consciousness, right? And so, like, you guys, like, and so, like, basically that's what I'm trying to say is we can get into like some more deeper stuff now off of that, but that's really all it is when you're connecting to a diet. And so depending on how well now you kind of, like, depending on how much time you've been doing this for, you'll get to a level where you're like, okay, I'm pretty dialed in to where I'm at. I know where my base level is. And from here now, all I got to do is like turn the dial either left or right, and I can enter into a new channel. I can tap into a new frequency, a new, field that now I can explore a little more easy because I'm a little bit more grounded. You know what I mean? I'm not going to just like fly off the edge or like crash or burn, because I can adjust it accordingly and I can get out. It's kind of like almost like taking psychedelics, and you know exactly how much a dose is before you kind of get a little bit wacky, or you kind of stay grounded. And so it's kind of like the same thing. And so I believe that's what really this whole thing is. And after I did the vegetarian thing, I did start eating meat again. I started connecting with that, and because my body was kind of asking for it again, so I dove in, and immediately that's when I started seeing the differences about basically how my consciousness changed. I could like pinpoint the exact moment my awareness, my field, my desires, the motivation, the things that motivated me, and what I was like wanting to strive to do next, and how I was going to do that. That totally shifted once I went from a plant based to an animal based to having some animal based. I didn't just go full carnivore. I still kept a lot of my ways of my previous kind of plant based as predominant, but still it shifted, and it was actually something that I needed, because it wasn't because I needed to like feel stronger or anything. I didn't. It was only more so because I needed to shift the way I was thinking and how I needed to approach life and the action I needed to take, because I felt like being on a plant-based diet, I kind of was just like, I'm going to be a plant now, guys. I'm just going to plant myself here, and I'm going to let everything come to me, right? Because that's what plants do, right? They uses all these organisms. I'm saying we because I feel like that's who I am, in a way. But it's like we allow things to come to you. Animals, we have to go to things. We have to go and reach out now. We have to travel. We have to hunt. We have to do all these things. And I needed to hunt. So when I was always like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. But it's like, show me the way, show me the way. And then it was like, okay, it's like, I got to eat some meat. I started eating meat. And then all of a sudden, like, I was like, I'm going to go hunt. You know what I mean? Like I came up with like different ideas, different things, different kind of like concepts that like helped me kind of push forward. And I was like, that's it. That's all it is. I'm like, I just needed the spirit of something different to help me in my journey. And this is what like Native Americans do, right? Like my ancestors, I'm from Guatemala, I'm from Central America. And like, the Mayans, the Aztecs, like that's deeply in my blood. And like, I know that that's part of the wisdom that like our ancestors, all of our ancestors had, right? We connected with certain spirits of certain beings to help us in our journey. And so this is really all that this is all that diet is, man.
I'm going to say one quick point, and then Mike, I know you got a million things to say, just like I do. But Marlon, when you say you had to hunt, you're not saying literally go hunt animals, but just go out and search, right? You needed to move and
Yes.
search and
Yes,
find.
like leave the
Yes.
bed, like where my little bed was, where I was like happy being a flower and a
Yeah.
plant in one spot, and I just needed to start getting out because I'm a hermit. Like I'm very like I'm very like I'm isolated. I'm really perfectly fine. Just I'm being an introvert, and so like I had to kind of push out of that introvertness and that hermit state and just like I'm like in my own
Yeah.
world. Like I was perfectly good, just nobody talked to me, like I interact with people because I do that with my clients, but yeah, I had to get out of that in a different world and in like a level of mind, like my level of thinking and awareness and exploration of other things.
Amazing.
That was one of the most beautiful reframes of diet that I've ever heard, Marlon. I mean, that was absolutely stunning. And it's really interesting when I think about some of the vegetarians who are in my inner circle, they are more connected to place, I would say. They tend to like just be where they are. And whereas I'm a traveling musician, I'm all over the world and like part of me I like
Hmm.
to ramble, I like to roam and I've never looked at the fuel I'm putting in my body as related to the wandering spirit, but I'm really going to take that with me. That's an incredible story. So you don't really see. I think we get very caught up in a lot of judgment around meat eating, or actually, just speak for myself. But the culture seems to cast that on it, right? Whereas that in some of the influencers I follow as well, people like Santos Bonacci, these spiritual uh, teachers, they really come down hard on meat eaters. But you're not taking that tack. You're saying that it's bigger than the like an oversimplification of good versus bad.
Yeah, well, we're men. We're so indoctrinated and deeply rooted in like polarity.
Yeah.
Like we're so polarized when it comes to anything, and it's like this is the thing that I'm kind of like that's what I mean. Like my mind just shifted so wildly because I started seeing all these people that I was like really looking up to as far as like spiritual teachers and gurus and stuff, and I noticed that they were very polarized too. Like they were very like I remember just I'm not speaking bad about like the Czech Institute. I love like Paul Czech and Andy Czech. They taught me so much and stuff. But like I went there, I remember just an experience on my 2018. I went and did my holistic lifestyle coach level 1, and I was like, and I was in California, and I was like, I remember they're talking about like isms and things like that. They're like, you shouldn't be like, things like vegetarianism is not good. And then like, and then they were mentioning something about like CrossFit, like doing extreme things like CrossFit and stuff. And then they're like, okay, everybody introduce yourselves. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm Marlon. I'm a vegetarian
Crossfitter.
and I do CrossFit. And everybody was just kind of like, hi, Marlon. And then they're like, I'm interested to know who this guy is because this guy's here too. And clearly he's not some, some quack or some dude out there, some bum hippie or whatever. And like, and I wasn't like injured walking around with like broken limbs and stuff. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm really on my own journey right now because I'm really like, I just need to like connect to what I feel is right. And I'm gonna take a little bit of everyone's philosophy, but I totally see one of the biggest things, and I tattooed that on my rib cage. It's like the all is mind, right? And so it's like we're all just the manifestation of this giant mind, and we're just every part of us is a manifestation of that mind. So there's no way we're separated, and like we're just all seeing this world out of like one small window out of the building, and we're all like, this is the truth. And even like no, like it seems like some of these it seems like to be almost now like kind of like the older kind of like spiritual gurus, teachers and stuff, like they still have that like deeply rooted indoctrination of like, okay, that's bad. But it's like if you understand that we're all spirit and we're all consciousness and we all come from the same fabric of this ether of whatever the consciousness that makes up everything, which is a level of mind, even if we're in a simulation, guys, something still had to create the simulation. So there's still a creator. So what I'm saying is like, we're just like, we're still here, and we can't say that that's wrong and this is right because it's all just information. It's all energy information, and we have the capacity to tap into all of that. And there's no you can't be everywhere at once all the time. Like we are omniscient in that sense because we can tap into a lot of things, but our bodies are limited to being able to experience only so much at once, so that we can actually say like this is this thing, like this is this thing. I figured this thing out because I was able to do this for a certain amount of time and I experienced this one thing. And so you can't just say that. You can't say that it's like that. So no, I don't speak bad on anything. I don't say this is bad. I've never have. You can look at all my Instagram posts, everything I've ever done. I've never said you're bad for eating meat. You're stupid for being a vegetarian. I'm just like, hey, no meat, no problem. That was one of the things I started saying. I started tagging on my posts. I was like, no meat, no problem. And I was still lifting like 315, 325 pounds over my head because it's not a problem. It's not an issue. I'm just choosing to do something differently. And then when I went back to it, I felt okay. I felt the same. I was just now entered into a different state. Right. And so, yeah. And then I did the fruit thing after. We can talk about that after. But yeah, just to answer your question.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think what I love so much about the way that you have chosen your path is this idea of like what resonates with you. So what manner of eating, what foods resonate with you, what foods are calling to you, and then this idea that you're just sort of tuning, like you're changing a dial, you're just turning the dial a little bit to tune in. What I would argue or question is how many folks can authentically resonate with food and actually feel like they're being called to a certain food if they're surrounded by so much noise and like advertising and also folks around you eating certain foods. Like it seems like it requires a real, as you would say, inner standing. One, who am I really? And then a lifestyle that allows you to silence some of that noise. So you're finding quiet. I know that, remember last time we spoke, Dr. Quiet, you had the four doctors. Dr.
Mhm.
Quiet was one of them. How many people
Yeah.
carve out time consistently in their day to be quiet, find out who they really are, so then they can actually hear the food calling to them or hear that resonance, right? Like that tuning. And so that's like step one. First of all, I love the idea of being called to a certain way of living and eating. That is
Mhm.
information. I love that you're thinking of it as information and not breaking it down into its like constituent parts. I think that's a real failure of science. And the idea that it's all energy and it's all part of this field, I think is the approach that more of us need to be taking. But in order to feel that resonance, in order to hear that call, you've got to block out that noise, and you also have to know who you really are, right? You have to have some idea, like some attunement internally before you can like externally attune.
Yeah, that's totally it. You gotta have you gotta be centered in that sense. Like I have like quite a very profound practice when it comes to like all these things. Um and a lot of it, it's not like it's just built up over the years, right? I've always added something new into my practice. I've always added research, and then like really like that, like, okay, let's see if this works. And then like, but I have to do that for a long time to know if it works or not. And then I'm like, okay, this is valid for me, I'm going to maintain this. And then I reassess later when I come across a whole new paradigm shift, and I'm like, how is this other stuff working for me? And then as I get into it and it makes sense, then I feel like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. But there is a practice where you have to go back in, like the inner standing. You do have to do the meditation. You do have to break away what I like. What I like the term breaking pattern, right? So you got to break pattern often, and you have to do this in a way where you're not going to just completely just break so much pattern that you just forget everything you built up, right? So you break pattern as often as you can in a way that helps you to stay grounded and focus on just the like nothingness, like just always coming back from zero. And then you can really be like, okay, what do I like, who am I? I'm like, okay, yes, that's who I am, or this is what I like, this is what I want to go for. And then you got to go back often to that 0 point and then be like, yep, okay, that's still me. You can come back and really, because then when you go back to zero, it's like you're not like you're not still like catching up with all the other things that were out there just being
Yeah.
bombarded with, because you see like the pattern of how this is happening, and you're just like, you know what, like this is just the same thing. It's happening over and over again, and it's helped me that I've got into this such like a long time ago, because I wouldn't say long time ago, but even like 2010, 2011, that's when like Instagram first came out. Like there was like nothing out there. And so I've been doing it since then. Now there's just so much information out there, and I'm like, this is all like, this is nothing new. Like I've seen this over and over again, and people are just trying to rebrand it. They're just trying to like put like clickbait on there, and they're just trying to make a crazy 15-second video. And the thing that I've like really tried to work really hard at and be and accept is that I don't need to like, because a lot of energy goes into trying to be an influencer nowadays, especially when you know you're onto something. You just want to share it with the whole world and be like, look what I've discovered, this is who I am, like, and you're trying to grow your following. That takes so much energy, and it takes so much time, and that's not energy that I have to give. I have more energy to give to learning and to experiencing. So like my Phitlosophy, which is like something I've actually trademarked. It's not just a thing that I hashtag. I actually have like my posters up there, like, or not posters, like my certificates in the United States and Canada. Like this is an actual thing, and so I'm growing this brand slowly. But it's right now. You gotta create like the philosophy. Philosophy is just, it's the love of wisdom through well-being, and the love of well-being through wisdom. So it's a yin yang principle. Like the yin yang symbol is part of it, and it's the center of the philosopher's stone. I call it the Phitlosopher's stone, not the philosopher's stone, but it's definitely rooted in alchemy. And the thing is that, this yin and yang, right? The wiser you become, the more well-being you can experience, right? And then the more well-being you can experience, the wiser you become. So you're just going back and forth, right? And so for me, there's more priority in that than there is in just trying to right now to really push out all these things, like all this information out there. And because I just feel that I don't feel like the more you learn, like not much, like not really anything at all, right? And so and it's crazy how our field works, because we feel like, oh yeah, we've got I figured it out, I have so much, like, this is it. And then all of a sudden something happens one day, and then you click on this one thing, or you go and you read this other book, and then now there's this whole new world of stuff, of a community and people and information that has been existing all alongside that you've been in on your journey, and you had absolutely no idea that it existed. And then now you're like, wow, now I got so much more learning to do, and I have to like, venture into this new paradigm and see this and that. And so you're just like, at that level, when you see this, you're just like, man, like there's just, I can't be ignorant. I can't be ignorant. I can't just say like, this is it, guys. This is the ultimate truth, right? So that's why I believe every day I wake up and I'm just like, I just give thanks that, hey, I'm like super thankful that I have a day to like learn something new and to experience something new. And this is really what it's all about, is just experiencing, right? And then accepting that. And then, yeah, we share it when we can, right? We share it, we can, but we just have to stay grounded in what we're doing in this moment, because that is the medicine. That is the answer. We're just too caught up in trying to, there is a purpose in helping others, but we do have to kind of slow down, right? And listen and go in and reset from zero, like I said, break pattern. And so that's really like my strategy to help kind of just stay neutral, stay grounded.
Yeah. One of the conversations the ongoing conversation around nutrition, of course, is so closely tied with the concept of terrain and trying to optimize your terrain. So many folks will say, malnutrition is one of the causes of illness, and getting the wrong foods in could send you on the pathway to illness. And folks like to, as you said, polarization. They like to point at maybe the one thing that they've adopted and say, this is the way that it should be for everyone. This is the
Hmm.
optimal nutritional path and lifestyle for all humans. And we come across that as folks have decided on a path and it worked for them. They then make that statement, this is for everybody. Like the phrase species appropriate diet has come up a couple times now in past episodes.
Hmm.
And what I like about your approach, it's one, it's this resonance thing, what food is calling to you, but it's also this like understanding of the collective consciousness that each of us as humans are just one, as you said, you're looking out one window in a building. I'm not looking out your window. You're not looking out Mike's window, but we're all sort of informing this collective consciousness. And so there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. How one human happens to be experiencing it, how one aspect of that consciousness is experiencing it, is just informing the whole and the collective. And it removes the this obligation to pass judgment on anyone for the way that they eat as being right or wrong. It simply is. That's what's called to you, or that's the journey that you happen to be on. And it's all informing the collective. I just happen to be on a different journey, and this is how I'm experiencing it. And we can just leave it at that.
Hmm. That's basically what it is. You got it. I mean, it's crazy because we're also so driven to change the world to be exactly the way we want it to be, and that takes a lot of energy. And I think things just spontaneously, kind of like how there's spontaneous remission, they call it. There is some type of like spontaneous collective change that happens immediately. Like I think there's a certain point in time where it happens where it's just like almost like it goes from like the 50-50% and then 51% all of a sudden get it, and then boom, there's a huge massive shift, and maybe like we just forget how everything used to be, and then now we have this new collective way of understanding things, and it just all makes sense. And I think that's the tipping point that we're moving towards, and that we just have to keep putting in that, building up that percentage that becomes the greater whole, and then all of a sudden everything's going to shift, and then we're not going to be caught in judgment, we're not going to be caught in like like trying to say this is better, this that. We just understand, hey man, we were just adolescents. Like you see now, even like this whole realm, the shape of everything, like when we look back at those videos like that they showed on television and they made it seem like this was real, we look back now and we look at it, we're like, this is so fake. I'm like, but we were so adolescent, we were like these little kids that were just shown TV, and we're like, it's all real. But it's like that's how conscious is. All of a sudden, something looks so it just doesn't make sense at all anymore. You're like, why was I doing that? And it's because that's literally the evolution of consciousness that we're all just collectively just remembering again. We're remembering things that we used to know, and it's all in the field. We just not tapped into it. And so once you start opening up your awareness through the lifestyle, through the nutrition, through the movement, through the mindfulness, through the meditation, right? I always say movement, mindfulness, meditation, the three M's, you start to see things totally different. And then you're a little bit more confident because you're just stepping back now and looking. You got to the top of the roof, and now you're like, whoa, I can see that there's just not windows, but there's this grand, vast view of things. And now I have to kind of like, now there's more responsibility. So now you're just like, I can't just go out there and start saying things. I can't just go out there and try to embody this one character, because everyone's playing just this character, and they're just like, and it's like, no, like I don't know which one I want to choose yet. Like I'm not really gonna choose right now. I'm just gonna try to just keep pushing along, like, and discovering things, and then see how well that works for me and how much I can apply, like, how much others might resonate with it too, right? And so that's really all it is. But like, you know, I did the mucusless thing, right? Because basically there's polarities. Like we can say there's somebody who eats just fast food all day long, and they're just like, they eat whatever, they don't care, they're not even aware of any chemicals things, and they're probably the most like loving person, caring person. They probably have just the best joyful like character, and people just want to be around them. And then there's also the person who's like a breatharian, who doesn't eat at all, doesn't drink water, and has been living for 10, 15 years like that. And they're also like just super like, the same kind of person. So it's like you can be both on either end. But I think it's just how strong that spirit and that will and that soul inside of that body is, that it was almost like overriding its environmental kind of obligations and like just the things that they're accumulating, right? So it's like no matter what, your spirit and your soul can surpass anything, no matter the diet. And that's the thing that I think is just so weird too, because like here I am trying to tune myself, obviously at a certain level, and I still don't understand certain things like I'd say somebody else does, or maybe doesn't see things the way they do. But it's like there's this overriding spirit there, overriding, almost like it's like, yeah, it's hard. I don't even know how to explain that part. But basically for me, it's like I see those polarities and I'm okay. I'm willing to dive into everything in between because I can, because it's there, and I know I'm not gonna perish. I know I'm not so caught up in one, invested in one thing, that I feel like I'm going to jeopardize my career or I'm going to jeopardize my name. Like I purposely don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be some professional that's like attached to this one kind of image, because then you have to play that image, and you're connected to that image and that title, because it's just a title. And then that title comes with conditions, right? And so I'm like, I just, it's better not to be there, right? So when I did that whole mucusless thing, right, going into fruitarian now, I really discovered a lot about my body. And this is actually something where I feel like I am going to build upon this, because I'm somebody who, for instance, like, there's a certain way that my body works and my metabolism works. And when I went into fruitarian, it's called mucusless lifestyle, which is Arnold Ehret came up with this. Arnold Ehret was the one that, introduced the mucusless lifestyle, right, and rational fasting. And he's actually the one that brought in naturopathy, naturopaths came from his practices basically, and he created sanitariums and healed many people with just this kind of mucusless lifestyle, right? And it connected with me, because I felt like, I'm like, this is interesting, because I really want to just I feel like there is things in my body that it's hard to just remove, but I don't believe that supplements is the key. So I believe that you can do it yourself just with real natural foods and movement and stuff, right? So that's kind of why I went to the whole mucusless lifestyle, and I believed that there was something there. So I did it for a whole year, okay, almost pretty much a year, and I still trained in CrossFit twice a day, like 5 times a week, and there was some changes in my body, but my consciousness changed, and I was definitely not in the same place, in the same mindset. But it totally opened my eyes up to the power of fruit to heal and to clean the body. Immediately, within like 2-3 weeks, I had dropped so much weight, and I was just like completely just shredded. And I was just like, and I didn't feel like I was going to die, but I was like, I had this different kind of energy, because sugar, especially like fruit sugar, is a totally different fuel, and we're just not even aware of the capacity that it has. But when you start eating that much fruit sugar, or just fruits and structured water, and all this information that's basically still alive, it's like you don't, it's hard to explain unless you actually do it yourself. But the amount of mucus and residues and things that I had stuck in my body started coming out at such a fast pace. It was really, I felt like for a while there, people thought I was just always sick, right? Like I was getting like a flu or something, but it was just constantly coming up. And because I trained hard, I was able to speed it up. So it didn't take me like 6 months to get rid of a bunch of stuff in my body. It only took like 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, right? Changed my way of breathing, right? Breathing only through my nose. Started practicing like the oxygen advantage stuff, and like things that like helped me just understand just how to like, produce more erythropoietin in the body. So like EPA naturally, and like that helps, right? That helps to sustain your body. Like, the only reason we eat foods like meats is because they're like high in like nitrogenous, like it's like a nitrogen, right? So like when you breathe, you have the capacity to tap into nitrogen. And so like we can sustain ourselves. That's why breatharians can sustain themselves through just breath, right? And so like I was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like I'm like really like still like I'm here and I'm still feeling great. And so like that to me was like a testament. And like also I wasn't just because going on the terrain, this practice was also introduced me to what's like a lot of people kind of think is weird, but like enemas and things like that. Like I know a lot of people talk about enemas nowadays and things like that for cleaning the internal terrain. And that's something I was doing constant, like 2-3 times a week for a whole year. So like you can imagine the amount of time, the amount of like, and we practice basically with lemon. So it's their lemon enemas. And that is the most powerful enema you'll ever come across. And so basically like this is something that I was doing like almost religiously. And it was crazy because I was doing this. I was also tapping into like, it was cool. I don't know if you guys know who John Levy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know John Levy, right? Like he does the whole like the whole antiquitect.
Yeah.
Like
Old
he's
world
always like
history. Yep.
history. So I was like, as I was doing this stuff, I remember I'd be like, I was also getting into like John Levy, and like I was starting to get into all these different paradigms, and I was almost like constantly cleansing all like my consciousness from all the things I'd accumulated through my life that was carrying some type of like imprint of the things I believed used to be like the truth. But it was like all coming out of me as I was doing these enemas, as I was eating fruits, as I was like, excreting all this mucus. And so it was like a crazy spiritual, like experience that was happening through like a whole year, and I wasn't really aware that that's what it was, but that's what it was
Right. You were
happening.
like,
You know what I
so
mean?
so that diet almost was allowing you to shed old stories to make space for the new ones.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it was information that was still stuck in my
Amazing.
body. It was carrying a level of consciousness that was in my body. And so we all know that everything has consciousness. So when any like biological tissue is activated, it creates mind. You don't know that your ear exists until you put your awareness on that ear, and then all of a sudden you know your ears are there. Same with your toes, same with everything. So you activate that level of consciousness of that part of the body once you think about it, right? And that's its own level of mind. That's why like people can get an organ transplant. The organ has the memory. They get the transplant. All of a sudden, they have memories. They have they adopt like the habits of that person that had the organ before. And so all this is consciousness. It's all information, and it's all there in the residue of the tissues. And so once we start to eliminate this stuff, our consciousness changes, and that's with any diet, right? You get on paleo. Oh, I lost a bunch of weight. Oh, I got this. I got that. I got rid of my bloating. I got that, whatever. You got rid of a bunch of things that were literally imprinting you with information that built up your belief system, right? Your cultural views, your political views. All these things are just tied to the way you're consuming,
Mm.
right? And so this is the best way to change your mind because you're literally changing the level of mind, which is just
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, so that's a year you did mucusless, you were fruitarian. What were some of the other, I mean, that those are some incredible changes. You mentioned, like, your body changed a little bit. What are some other so what are some of those, like, physiological changes that you experienced over the course of that year?
Uh, well, like obviously I dropped like physically I dropped a lot of weight. I was like lot of like my everything in my body was just running very very
Yeah.
cleanly. The way I breathed changed. I've had a new sense of like understanding of how the breath works. My digestive system was so much better. Here's the thing: is like I really want to. I think this is where I want to move to next. I do want to start teaching about this more about how to connect with your digestive system and like what is a natural good bowel movement, what is a natural amount of excretion, what that should look like, what it should smell like, all these different things, right? um, the way you eat, the order of way that the timing, the way you eat things, all these different things are ways that maybe not everybody needs it, but there's a lot of people out there that are just in the dark, in the closet, not wanting to talk about this. But I believe it's something that's very imperative to understanding to help yourself
Mhm.
eliminate, because I think elimination is not what it's believed to be. And I believe that even digestion, the amount of time that food spends inside your body, has been taught to us to be totally the opposite. And so our bodies are not supposed to have food inside them for a certain amount of time. That starts becoming like putrefied. It starts rotting. It starts fermenting. And so like once you start to learn the pattern of how much is going in and how much should come out, it really changes everything. And from there, that is a really good way to know what's good for you and what's not good for you. Because did it digest well? That's really all it
Yeah.
is. And it's like people don't know what that did it digest well means because they don't know what a natural digestible, like how much matter should be excreted. You know what I mean? And so like because they've never experienced it. And so like these are some of the things I started experiencing, and it was crazy. Like I was like, it was honestly, I was in a totally different level when it comes to that, and I was just like, wow, this is how like this is. I think this is the way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? And so like, and so from then on, I've been able to use that as a marker now to help me like know like, am I eating too much meat? Because like once I started eating meat, I realized meat is not easy to
Yeah.
digest for me at least. Some people might be better, but I know like I'm missing an appendix, so that probably has a lot to do
Mm.
with it because an appendix supposedly holds a lot of the bacteria. It's like a almost like a reserve, like a reservoir as well, and I got that removed, so maybe that does impede my ability. But basically, like there is like all I'm saying is if you've never experienced it, what going the other way, like fruitarian, then when you go back, like this doesn't
Yep.
feel right, right? I don't feel completely empty, or I don't feel completely like light like I should. And so anyways, this was something that really like has been really profound learning for me in that aspect, and I believe that I think more people actually need that, and it's something that when I work with clients, I do try to get them to understand, and that's one of the first things we work on, and then from there we kind of just obviously do exercise and stuff like that. But a lot of people are not ready for that. Most people are just ready for just beat me up, give me a good workout, let me sweat, and then that's really all I need right now, right? And that's fine because it is a
Yeah.
gateway. Exercise is a gateway, and I believe it is a good way because they call it exercise. It's like exorcism, right? And so you are kind of like exercising things out of your body, and then hopefully that kind of like opens up a light. It turns on a light in there, and then you're now you can like, oh, I want to try that next. You know what I mean? Or I'm willing to do that because now I'm not so stressed out. I have a little bit of time to like actually wonder about something. I'm not just caught in fight or flight. And so like it is a gateway. And so movement, any kind of movement is medicine, right? And so as long as we have movement, we have mindfulness, right? The things that we're putting in our body, the things that are terrain, the way we're interacting, what the information is that we're putting in, right? And then we can meditate upon that, right? To see how that all really makes you be like accumulates to the being that you are, and what you're now going to radiate outwards into the field that you're co-creating, right? Then that in itself is, I believe, the trinity that we all just need to embody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I love
I,
that. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd love to get into some of your experience with fasting, but
Okay.
first on mucusless before we wrap this up, is it something of a misnomer? Is the goal that mucus isn't part of your system anymore? But obviously, like when you're first starting, you're expelling mucus. You're everything's coming out, right? So obviously, there's a rush of mucus that's coming out of you. But on the other side of that is the goal that there's no more mucus present. There's no need for it.
That's a good that's a good question. It would be really hard to get rid of all the mucus in your body because there is a lot of things that are constantly producing mucus, and it could be and it's honestly just a self-defense mechanism of the body to create like a layer to help from something penetrating the wall, right? So that it gets into the blood. So it does that, right? And so there's a lot of things that produce mucus, and I had to really really like dial in on what does and what doesn't. But the thing is that as soon as you, let's say, don't produce mucus, as soon as you put in something that breaks down mucus, you have mucus. So, like, if I eat a bunch of fruit in the morning, which is how I start my day, I'm blowing my nose like left, right, and center. Like, all this mucus is coming out. And then it's clean, and then I'm able to work out, whatever, and I'm blowing a little bit here and there. But then I'll go and eat something because I'm not totally mucus free at this moment. I'm like, I'll have some other things around that I'm playing around with and experimenting for other reasons. And then I can feel like all of a sudden there's like mucus buildup in my nose, and I have to blow. And especially now that I breathe only through my nose, not while I'm talking right now, but when I'm just not doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I gotta clear my nose. Oh, so it's like I'm constantly blowing my nose, and so it's like it's really hard. And like one of the biggest things you can tell how much mucus is in your body is by the magic mirror. So that's your tongue, right? So when you open up your tongue, depending on how much like the white stuff that's on there, the pus, the mucus, that's basically shows. And here's this kind of goes into the whole fast that I did. And that was one of the reasons I did the fast. I wanted to kind of see how quickly I can get rid of a lot of this mucus over that 9-day period that I did. And I'll tell you right now, there was so much white in my tongue, like it was crazy. Like it tasted bad, and I was like so, I was like, it was crazy. Like I just knew like this is what was happening. But the reason why the magic mirror is so important is because that is a reflection of how the lining of your intestines looks at the moment. And so that's why doctors back in the day would just be like, let me see your tongue. It's not, it's because it's literally the lining of the inside of your stomach to see how well it's doing, right? And so sometimes, though, depending on what you're consuming, you're suppressing the mucus from coming out. But as soon as you start like a detox, that's why people get like sick. They get all this stuff happening. That's called a healing crisis, and they think, oh, it's the diet, the protocol that I'm doing that made me sick. But no, you're loosening up all this waste and all this matter that's now making you feel like crap, right? And so it started to come out, right? And so you have to really know how to dial in how much you want to let this stuff come out, how quickly. And that's called a transition diet. So the transition diets are imperative to help you move in and out of certain diets so you don't have a healing crisis and so that you don't have a crash diet, right? That's what people don't understand. They crash because they didn't transition into it. So I like transition very slowly into things, right? And so that's one of the things that I've learned was really important. But um, basically, when I did this fast, it was like a totally like profound experience that I'm still like I haven't even grasped, because I feel like my goal was a lot longer than 9 days. But I made a mistake because I started working out because I had this energy. So I started working out while I was like doing this fast, and that was a huge mistake because I basically I did wear myself down too quickly, and that wasn't a good transition for me. So I learned my lesson. I'm going to be doing it again in the future. But basically, when I did this, I was in the aims to discover, like, okay, can I go without food now? Right? I came back from Costa Rica and I was like, hey, like I'm gonna just fast for a day. And then next day I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna eat today either. And then the next day I'm like, you know what? Okay, let's go. Like, let's do this. And like, I was like, I think I can do this for a long time. But again, I got too excited. I was like, I really wanted to use the energy that I had. But I've already researched this for a long time, so I'm kind of a little disappointed in myself that I did that. But anyways, it was an experience. So I knew that I wasn't supposed to do all that movement, but I did it anyways because part of my, I think, nature is I want to work out. It's just
Yeah,
part of
it's
what I
it's
do.
Yeah.
So
the
I have
call,
to learn.
of the iron.
Yeah, I have to learn to put that aside, and nothing's gonna happen. And so, anyways, so that was such a crazy experience, guys, because 9 days without eating, I had so much time on my hands
Right.
because you don't realize how much time goes into preparing food, right? That gave me an extra like 3 to 4 hours in a
Totally.
day, and then I just didn't know what to do myself. But it was also tough because I was working full time, right, with my clients, so I was putting out a lot of energy. I was really trying to, I was talking a lot, and all this was just wearing me down a lot too. And so you really have to separate yourself from all that, at least when you're a beginner, right? But it was really crazy because I was just really like, it was profound. It was profound because I was just drinking water, and I was also drinking my own urine. That was something that I was doing. I've been practicing that for a long time too, like urine therapy. They call it shivambu. More so when I was a vegetarian because it's better. I think it's better. Like, it's not better, but it doesn't it just doesn't taste the same when you're eating animal products. It's bitter and stuff like that. So I had been practicing that too because, again, I have to practice everything I was come across. So, and it just felt right. I felt like this is sustainable. But I came off of it because I sped up my elimination because I started drinking lemon juice. I started drinking lemon juice too towards the end of the fast because I'm like, okay, let's see how much comes out. And I did a mistake because lemon is so powerful. People don't realize how powerful it is, but it's so powerful. And so drinking lemon water was just sped up my elimination, and that's really and then I went through like a really profound elimination, which is what people call like a flu, or like I got sick, I
Yep.
got a cold, but all I call it, what like Eritis call it, is just an elimination. You're going through an elimination, and so like it was just an elimination that was really, really brutal because I got super dehydrated because I wasn't aware how much faster you deplete yourself when you don't have food in your body. And so I was down and out. It was really bad, but I knew that I had done this to myself. So I had to come out of it slowly. It's almost like going out and drinking for like a whole night. That was like, back in the day, you go crazy and then you're like having this huge hangover for like 3 days, 4 days. It was like that. I had literally felt like I was like hungover, and it was just really bad. But anyways, I got out of it. I knew why, and then so I just kind of transitioned slowly back into eating. But man, like the amount of time I had just to think about things and just to like detach from more things. You know what I mean? I went through the fruitarian, detached from a lot of other stuff, detox through the fasting, detox through the enemas and through the mucusless stuff, and then going into not eating. That was just the next level. And so like it was like a psychedelic experience too because like my days just felt so long, and I just looked forward to sleep. I felt like sleep was like my my safe haven. Like I just wanted to just stop interacting with everyone, and it was my place of peace where I could just be at peace because it just becomes a lot of noise. Like you're just like your body is working really hard to like almost like shift the way that the way it's starting to like trying to like to sustain itself. And then at the same time you have all this noise, you have all this stuff coming in, and like I dropped just so many things that I was doing online, things that I was like into, groups that I was in, all this stuff. I just dropped a lot of that after that fast. And I was like, wow, I was like, I don't really care about any of that stuff anymore too. So I was just like, wow, like I kind of got like some peace, you know what I mean? And I got more peace in that way. And then I'm like, I have more energy now for myself. And then it's like, so now it's like, yeah, it's interesting where I'm going to go next with it, because I have now all this different experience, which I'm now kind of like integrating together. And I'm like, just like, it's just about like, okay, like I just have to stay calm and stay like patient, because like I don't need to figure out the secrets of the universe tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay where I'm at right now. And I'm like, I'm happy. I have a family. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for just this opportunity we have to just constantly like co-create and to like, to elevate, to I try to use all these words that rhyme, but it's like, to cultivate, to integrate, and like all these words are just so profound, because and motivate, and so like we can use all this. And I'm big into gardening, like you guys probably know, like, and like that takes up a lot of my time and like research, and like I want to do so much stuff with that, and along with the movement, along with the meditation. And there's just my Phitlosophy is just, it's very profound, and what I feel is like very, I feel like we all already have access to this, but it's about like structuring in a way that makes sense for us to all eventually all win. Because like life and like nature is like abundance, and that's all the nature is, and that's what it's here to teach us, is that it's just so abundant. And I've made videos about this in the summer, that out of one seed I could feed my family for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean? And that, if you can get your mind around that, you you don't really have any more like need to want to like support anything else but that seed. Because there's that, whatever that biotech or that technology is, that could house so much information in this little seed. And this seed can give us hundreds of seeds. So in every seed there's exists a potential of 1,000 for us. Like that concept. Like, why are we worried about all this crap? Politics, like the monetary system, like all this, like, basically all this BS, like the television, all these different things that just are just there to distract us and take us away from what already is here to give us more than we can ever even consume. Like if my whole backyard was full of like fruits and vegetables, most of it would go to waste, because I just wouldn't be able to eat all of it, right? But that's what nature's here designed to do. So it's like it's giving us clues. You know what I mean? You can eat as many apples as you want in a day, which I was eating like 8 apples a day, and I was like, I was loving life, and I'm like, because there's so much more. Like I wasn't feeling like I was gonna like wear down the supply of apples. Like, is this sustainable? Of course it's sustainable. One apple has like 6 seeds in it. If I take those 6 seeds that I just ate and I go plant them again, that's gonna give me more trees. Like, there's no way I could run ever out of food. And so like for me, I'm like, this is just not right. How we don't understand this. You know what I mean? And then people want to commercialize that. Oh, I want to make this company and I want to create products now, and I want to basically break down the product, the natural living food, and create a supplement out of it and make money out of it. It's like, no, that's the model of the corporate, the dead corporation, the corpse. It's a dead entity contracting with other dead entities, and it's a dead system. It's a debt system, and it's a death system, right? So we're all pushing a death system and a debt system that's going nowhere, and it's inflationary and it's unsustainable. But yet we have this sustainable, basically abundant, never could essentially end other system that's the living world, that we're just like, oh, we need to find a solution. How can we make this like a world a better place? But it's like, guys, it's right there. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, man. That's, to me, is the most overwhelming thing, and it's hard to like, to like figure out how to, you know, basically get enough land to be able to do something like this. And I think there is people that are obviously trying to do this kind of stuff. But I think that we have all the answers, and they're all right here. They're all right all around us. And the whole, yeah. Anyways, it's just crazy. I feel like, yeah, we're on to something right now. and it's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean that message alone is the one that's worth trying to get that 51% to wrap their heads around, and that is just the anti-scarcity, right? Nature is the
Yes.
answer. Nature is abundance, and we just need to reacquaint ourselves.
Yeah, and you know, we all have such, we're all so powerful. Like you guys are like a force of your own. Like you guys, I really like I know you guys are musicians. Like I used to play the saxophone and the trumpet back in the day too. I was like in a jazz band. I really love music, right? And so you guys understand that like music is just a vibration, right? It's frequency, and you can create something that really soothes the soul and the mind and the body, and it actually makes your body move, you know what I mean? And it keeps you in a rhythm, and it inspires you, and you get all these like inspirations out of this thing that we're listening to, and then that you're creating, right? And you're learning how to just make this like this symphony, right? It's like that's how it all is. It's all just a frequency, and we just have to connect to the frequency of like
Mhm.
abundance. And that doesn't come from beating another man. You know what I mean? From overpowering another man. And that's why like competition for me, I kind of strived away from that, because I was tired of trying to like beat another man, right? Like I'm like, I can only be so good, you know, like there's always gonna be somebody better than me. And what when all this energy that I have that I'm putting into to be such a good athlete, I can put that energy into doing something else, right? That's gonna bring more life to me and everyone
Yeah.
else, right? So like we gotta just shift, right? And you know, people want to decentralize. They want to have their own e-commerce. They want to have their own system, their own money, their own this, that. But it's like maybe that's not the answer. Maybe the answer is we have already all that, and we just have to trade or just help each other with just, you know, with just procreating what's already here, and then using land. Like one quick thing, real quick. I know people like they buy real estate because they're like, how much money can this make me? But I'm like, no, guys, you're using land, and you're taking you want to sell it again. Like that's how far away we've gotten from seeing like this land is way more valuable than anybody in the stock market or any in the housing market could give it, because this land can feed you and your family for generations. So that should be the value of the land, based on how well you can cultivate that land and how much you can produce from that land, which is a lot. If you use the right permaculture, the right, you know, electroculture, we use like biodynamics. If we use all these different things that are out there, these tools, biogeometry, all these things, if you learn how to use these tools and put them all together, you can make this happen. And that's something that I was experimenting with. I have some of the electroculture antennas here I've been putting in my yard, and like, you know, I use biogeometry, I use like permaculture stuff. Like I want to bury horns. Like I don't know if you guys know by biodynamics, they bury the horns inside with the excrement inside, and then they let it sit for a year, and then you get this crazy soil. And it's like I'm like, these are the things that for me is like, this is the cool stuff. Like this is the technology that we need to put our minds and our attention to, because I believe that this right here is the answer. But like we all have to make a living, right? We all have to work to pay the bills that is still, you know, existing in this old system. And then I believe like we all are striving to make a little bit more so that we can have time for these things. But I believe that's almost an illusion too, because everything else is speeding up and everything's inflating, and we have to work harder, put more hours in to make that happen. And so we all want financial freedom, but it's hard to achieve that so that we have the time to create and to like step aside and do the research and really integrate ourselves. So I think that's the dilemma we have
Mm.
too. So I think that's also the thing we have to find an answer to, because you know, we need time. That's unfortunately, you know, the thing that's going against being able to do all these
Yeah.
things, right?
Well, I think you found the solution in fasting, right? You had more time than you knew what to do with. When you take
You're right.
food off
Yeah,
your daily calendar, you do end up with a lot of extra hours. Yeah,
you're right.
and well, Marlon, speaking of time, we are over the hour, and we don't wanna monopolize your time. Listen, last time you were on, we asked this question, your non-negotiables, the daily habits you do to tend to your terrain, and you had those 4 doctors
Yeah.
from the Czech Institute. What are you doing now? There's been 3 years. Is there anything new that you've integrated into your daily?
The non-negotiables, like I was mentioning, okay, is the Trinity, which is the movement and the mindfulness and the meditation. Those are my non-negotiables right now, because you can extrapolate a lot from
Yeah.
practices.
Love it. And Marlon, what about book recommendations to the listener who wants to dive in deeper into some of these topics?
Well, I did recommend that Ishtat Bentov, right? That was Stalking the Wild Pendulum and the Mechanics of Consciousness. This one's cool because he illustrates it himself, and there's like some really profound teachings here that can go a long way for even just understanding consciousness and just our role and how we kind of integrate ourselves into this. Just because that one came up, definitely. I mean, when it comes to um, nutrition and stuff like that. Obviously, you can dive into the mucusless lifestyle, which is like you can get like Prof Spira, like he talks about he breaks down Arnold Ehretz's stuff. So this is like Spira's notes on the mucusless lifestyle healing system. That one's good because he breaks it all down and makes it a little more digestible. No pun intended. But then, I mean, my philosophy is all the love of it's all philosophical, but it's like the love of wisdom through well-being, the love of well-being through wisdom, but it's also like integrated in like the stages of alchemy, and like how alchemy obviously was understood to be something like that was just turning base metals into gold, but it's actually more of like a spiritual kind of process. And like all these like all these like endeavors that I'm doing, I'm constantly breaking myself down. So going through the black stage, right? Then I'm separating, right, things that emerge from the ash, and like integrating it with a new, like purifying it through the white stage, right? And then I'm going through like a conjunction and like basically like a fermentation and putrefaction stage where I'm like letting this stuff just kind of ferment and create a new thing. And this is like the conjunction where basically the red phase where we come out with the philosopher, what I call the Phitlosopher stone. And so this is like your path to becoming the fittest version of yourself. And so, if you can start to get an understanding of alchemy, you can see how you can understand these things. And like one of the books that you can that I like about that is right here is the Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy. Just because that one is obviously it breaks things down a little bit easier for you, but you can there is a lot of books out there. I see you got a massive rack in behind you too, and I'm sure Mike's got the same thing. But it really they're just principles. Just get down to the basic principles of just nature, right? Because we do have to unlearn a lot that we have learned. And so even a lot of these books here, I'm like, man, I don't even know if I like I spent a lot of time in that book, but I don't really agree with any of that anymore. Or like, or I don't really not agree, but I just don't find it as useful in my life anymore. So, there's just you gotta just take the simple things, right? Just try to connect with books and things that are like that really simplify life, and connect with something that's really useful, that can connect you back to the earth. And then there's a wide range of books out there for
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Well, reconnect to nature. You should be hugging more trees than you read books.
Yeah, or walking
Yeah.
barefoot.
Yeah.
I know, like that was a big thing for
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah. That was huge. Marlon, last question. Where should the listener learn more about you?
Um, well, I mean, I'm just like honestly, I just dabble into my social media on Instagram, Marlon Azurdia Phitlosophy, and I'm not like posting on there crazy. Like I have some things on there I put on there, and I try to like send hints in the message and stuff like that. But I'm not like super active. I don't have like products to sell or anything like that. Like maybe one day, some courses or something like that to help people get into the land and to get into more like movement, mindfulness, and meditation for sure. But I'm just posting casually. I'm mostly like a student of life right now. I'm like you guys were like, we have a little bit of time to dabble in and connect in the social online social world, but like a lot of my time goes into just being, what I mean, and experiencing, which is like I think a lot of us should do, because these phones and these social media platforms do take a lot of time away from us, and we can't be creating this universe inside of that be like all of our time. We have to stay connected to the outside world, and I think there'll be a time where I think we can all connect more and more in person a little easier, and we could like we can really just jam out to some music and then get into the earth and do some movement and some tai chi and some sprinting, and maybe just not eat for a while, you know what I mean? So I think that would be cool. And I really want to be that, like that to be my goal. I want to connect with these like events that are happening with the community that
Yeah.
we're in, and try to meet you guys in person and things like that. That's what I really want to work
Amen.
towards.
Yeah, let's do it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That was
Hell
awesome,
yeah.
guys.
Marlon Azurdia, thank you for coming back on the Train Theory podcast. It had been too long, and we are so grateful to have you back on.
Man, you guys, awesome. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. You guys are consistent, and that's how I know you guys are going to make a huge impact in this realm because you guys are just really consistent in what you do, and you connect with a lot of great people. And you guys, you just have such a good ability to remember everything that you guys talk about with everyone. So I'm sure that don't be overwhelmed by that. Like I'm sure there's a truth in everything that you guys are using towards to build up your understanding, your understanding of yourself and everything around us through the terrain, right? And so you guys just keep doing it, man. I really enjoy seeing you guys doing your thing online, and I really enjoy connecting with you. I really respect you guys, and I'm just like grateful to have you guys in my life, man. Because there's not very many people I can connect to at this
Yeah.
level. I'm out here, like I said, I do this a lot on my own. Obviously, my family, but it's hard to come across people like that and interact with them. So our community is growing, but I'm happy that I'm connected through you guys. You know what I
Amen.
mean?
Back at you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Back at
Yeah,
you.
right back at you.
Yeah, man. All right, guys.